So thank you everyone for joining us or watching this recording. Today we're going to be talking about prepping for your GRE exam. We have two panelists joining us today. Riley and Milan, you guys want to introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit on what you took your GRE for?
Okay, so hello, my name is Riley. I am an exercise science student, so I took the GRE in order for my applications for physical therapy school, and I recently took it in July, and I'm looking forward to helping you guys out.
Milan?
Hi, I'm Milan. I'm an exercise and sports science student as well. I took the GRE for my PT school applications, and I took it in April and August. So I took it twice, and got the score I wanted in April.
Perfect. Yeah, GRE is very common PT school, MBAs. GRE covers a lot of different areas. And I know we've had past sessions covering the MCAT DAT. So today we're going to dive a little bit into the GRE exam, what it entails, and then turning over to Riley Malone with just some questions, reflections. So the GRE test structure, you're going to see it has trying to measure analytical writing. You're going to have two sections for verbal reasoning, two sections for quantitative reasoning. You can see the allotted time provided here. And the two sections for verbal reasoning is 20 questions each for each section. Same thing for quantitative reasoning. So let's jump into the meat and potatoes of it. Milan, Riley, can you talk a little bit about how did you prepare for the analytical writing section of the GRE?
Okay.
We'll start with Riley. Why don't you start? I'm sorry.
Sorry. So what I did first is I just looked over what the writing section entailed because I bought one of the prep books. And so I looked at what the two different prompts were. I looked at some examples of practice ones that gave kind of what type of questions or prompt that would be asking. And then I found an app which was called Magoosh. And on there, they had a lot of good videos with explaining stuff to look for specifically in the prompt so you know what they are looking for you to write specifically. And I found that really helpful with that section.
Milan, what about for yourself?
Yeah, I also found Magoosh, and I just searched up YouTube videos as well on what the GRE is looking for in your essays. That was also helpful. I also used ETS, the actual company that makes a GRE. I went on their website and used their Power Prep exams, which I used to practice, and those really helped because you could have sample prompts, write your essay, and then you could get a score and feedback. So I think that was really helpful for me.
So what about the verbal reasoning? You know, the reading comprehension, text completion, sentence equivalence. How did you go about that section specifically? Riley, we'll turn it back to you and then go to Milan.
Okay. So like I said earlier, it was specifically the Princeton Review book. And so in there, they had a lot of tips for the stuff that they put in the questions to try to trick you. And so reading those tips when I was taking the test, I was able to look out for from the answer choices, the one that's supposed to be the trick one. So I would be okay, I know it's not that one. And then it was really just figuring out from the rest of the choices, which one I thought it would be. And in the book, also, they explain really well, the process of elimination that they suggest you use. I found that extremely helpful. And then back to Magoosh, they had an app too, which I thought was really cool with vocabulary words. And so every day I would just learn a couple of those words. And that definitely helped me on the test because I know a lot of the words on the GRE are words I've never heard of before. So that app was extremely helpful in that aspect.
Yeah, personally for me, I found the vocab to be the hardest part of the GRE just because there's so many words you've never seen before. And I feel like a way that I really studied for that was just memorization, straight going on Quizlets, trying to study as many words as you can. I feel like that was really helpful in boosting up my score from my first attempt to my second. There's a lot of great Quizlets out there that have like 500 essential vocab words and 500 advanced. And if you could study those like throughout your couple months of studying, I feel like you'll be very prepared for the verbal reasoning section.
Some really good tips and some resources to kind of look at. So what about, I'm sorry, let me go back here. So finally, how did you prepare for the quantitative reasoning section? So the arithmetic, algebra, geometry, data analysis, where, I mean, Ryder, we'll turn over to you first. Lagusha, I know that was kind of a research use. Was that something also helpful for this, or were there other any strategies in addition to that you used for this section?
For this section, just because I felt like I hadn't taken a math class in a while, I just went to YouTube, looked up the type of math problems that were on the GRE, watched those videos as like a review, like a quick math lesson, and then really I just did a bunch of practice problems to review, get myself comfortable with the type of problems as well. And I found that just practice and practice of math was what worked the best for me.
I always view math as kind of like baseball, where unlike other sports, you can kind of go out there a little rusty and shake it off. But baseball and math, it's like the more you see it, the more repetition, the more easier it becomes. And I have to imagine that this is something that some of the math problems maybe you struggle with, taking some of those equations to the tutoring and testing center could be another, way of getting some guidance from tutors on being able to master maybe some of the equations that are tricking you, whether it's in algebra or geometry or anything. Milan, what about you? How did you feel about this section, and what are some strategies you used?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I needed to take some batting practice. Because I haven't seen these questions in a while regarding algebra, arithmetic, geometry since, like high school. So I think it was just brushing up on, those topics. I found YouTube videos helped a lot. Also taking free practice exams on ETS, Kaplan, Manhattan Prep. I think they all give you like a few free exams, and then you could also pay for a few on ETS. And that gives you feedback on what you got wrong. And I feel like that really was helpful because you could just see where you got wrong and how to actually do the problem. So you could learn from your mistakes from your first diagnostic.
So far. So I'm going to start with Riley. I'm going to tweak yours a little bit, but Riley, when did you start studying for the GRE, and when did I know you mentioned you purchased, the book and everything. When did you realize you needed some additional things, or kind of what was your mindset, and how many months in advance did you do to kind of prepare for the exam?
So I signed up for the exam like 3 months before I was scheduled to actually take it. And then for those 3 months, every day I just did a little bit of studying. Well, on the weekends, I skipped it because I was like, I'm just going to take the weekends off because I took it over the summer. So I was like, no, I want to enjoy my summer. But I still, every day, I would try to do at least like an hour or so of studying. And I feel like that did a really good job at prepping me for the test.
Milan, same question, but I know you took it the second time. I'm curious on, tell me what you did the first time, and then what did you learn from that experience, and how long did you wait to take it the second time?
Yeah, I signed up for the exam, I think 2 months before I took it in August, my first attempt. And I didn't get the score I wanted, especially in the verbal section. I think the hardest part was the vocab. That's something I didn't really study as much in the my first attempt. So that's why I took it again, and I really focused on the vocab. And then eventually I did get the score I wanted, and I signed up like 3 months before the one in April.
That's usually the time I reckon, giving yourself 3 months in between to kind of prepare accordingly. So both of you have taken it along, you took it twice. How did you manage, because those 3 months, it's a lot of studying in three different sections. How did you manage that with everything else you have going on? Like both of you, have other responsibilities, grades to maintain, academics, parts that they're also going to evaluate for PT school. How did you manage this with everything else, whether it's shadowing, scholarship requirements, leadership roles onwards, right?
I just tried to set aside at least an hour a day. It didn't always happen, but that was just my main goal, is set aside an hour a day, get as much done as I could in that hour. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the vocab app, if I was just like sitting around, like say I was waiting for something, I would just pull out my phone, go on the app, and just get as many vocab words done as I could while I was waiting for stuff.
Alon, what about you? How did you manage everything?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just to be consistent. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be working from morning to night every single day to grind for this exam. You could do a little bit every single day, and that could really add up. Especially if you have 3 months to study for. I think just an hour a day will be, that will be more than enough.
Chipping away at it. When should you take the GRE? And I know both of you are in PT, so we'll use that as a great barometer. What year should you ideally take it? Like, should you take it your junior year, end of your sophomore year, beginning of your senior? What would be your recommendation for the first time taking the GRE? Riley?
Sorry, I had the unmute button wasn't working. Um, I think like around junior going into senior year worked well for me. That's about when I did it. But I also just think it depends on when your applications are due. I wouldn't wait too close to the deadline, because then I feel like it would start to get stressful, and you don't want the stress of the GRE on top of the stress of trying to get it done before your application is due. So I think just give yourself enough time before the application and you should be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think earlier the better. I think the summer before your application year is most ideal. If you don't get the score you want, then you have more time to take it again. It's not like, oh, you have a month left of to apply and you didn't get the score you wanted, and now you have to take a gap year, go another route. I think earlier the better, and yeah.
Yeah. Giving yourself some flexibility again to take it again or focus on something else. Um, so now let's talk about the day of. You go into the exam. What did that look like? Did anything surprise you? Did anything make you feel extra nervous, or just like tell us a little bit about what like taking that exam actually looks like?
So I took mine at the testing facility, which was FAU. So that was my first thing I had planned for, was the drive. I took it at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was like a 30-minute drive. So I knew I had to get up early because of traffic, stuff like that. So I think it was just a lot of planning into my day to make sure I had time to eat before getting there, enough time to get there. And I had never been to that building before. So also giving yourself time to find where you need to go. So if you don't get stressed that you're running low on time, you don't know where you're going. And nothing really surprised me. It's just make sure you plan. Because it was very helpful that I planned. I gave myself at least like 20 minutes from getting there to actually find where I need to go in the building. And some schools like have different parking rules than we do. So that was something I had to learn also, but definitely just plan.
Yeah, so I took my first attempt back home in New York, and then I took my second one in FAU. And for both locations, I think it's important to get there early. So just so you know where to figure out where the actual office is in the building, or the campus. And I think just be prepared to go in with the same mindset that you go to every practice exam, where don't change anything. If you don't do something for your practice exams, don't change up on test day. I always like to chew gum when I take an exam, so I kept it consistent. I always like to have like some kind of caffeinated drink right before the exam, so I kept that consistent on test day. So don't add something to your routine that day that's really gonna like throw you off.
Maybe Chipotle's not the best choice before the exam. Well, I think we've already talked about how long in advance we scheduled the exam. Um, I want to mention that there are some tutoring and testing resources. Spring break is upcoming, and we do have mock exams through Tutoring and Testing Center that can be really helpful. And Milan and Riley also mentioned other things involved in that. We have a lending library, different resources that we post, this webinar. You could also meet with our pre-health consultant. I know Milan is one of our pre-health consultants, so you can share his experiences. And you can see right here, we have some mock exams, specifically the GRE, Wednesday, February 28th. And you can find all that information on the second floor of the Student Affairs Building, our tutoring and testing center, with the contact information. But Riley, Milan, I kind of want to wrap it up with two questions. One of which is like, if you could talk to your, past self and go back in time and give you some advice before the first time you took the GRE, what would that advice be?
My advice would be it's just a test. I feel like I stressed myself a lot about it, and it's just a test. You can take this test multiple times. So if something doesn't go right the first time, learn from that experience and apply it to the next time. So don't make a huge deal out of it when it's just a test.
Yeah, I agree. Don't, don't take it that hard on yourself. Like at the end of the day, like if you put in the work, like there's no need to stress. Like if you take it early, you have another chance to take it again if you didn't get the score you wanted, or you get the score you wanted, and you're done with it early. So, just do, an hour a day. It's more better just be consistent, um, throughout the couple months, and I think that's it. Like if you put in the work in, you'll do fine, and no need to really like stress about it. It is just a test.
So my last question, and it could be reiteration of something you said earlier. What would you say is one of the key elements to your success in taking that exam, whether it was the first or the second time?
For me, one of the key elements was just learning the tips for stuff to look out for and how they trick you on the test. Because when I did the first practice test, I was reading the questions and I felt like I was reading a different language. But going back and doing the practice test and taking the actual test, after knowing for the tricks and the key words they put into the problems, it made the problems a lot more easy to understand for me.
I feel like for me, it was taking practice tests and just trying to make sure I don't make the same mistakes again. So really like looking at where I went wrong and my, questions I got wrong, and try to see like how to actually solve them, whether it's math, verbal, or the essays. And I think I promise I'm not marketing ETS, but their products are really helpful for me. I feel like going on their website, because they're the ones that make the exam. Their practice exams were very similar to the actual thing. I also took some Kaplan practice exams. I found that a little harder, but all these practice exams are definitely going to help you just, time manage and get used to the material that you'll probably see on test day.
So Milan, Riley, thanks so much for sharing your experience and answering my questions. Just to make sure nothing I missed, I want to turn it over to the audience. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself for Riley or Milan that maybe I didn't get to ask and that you're kind of looking for some guidance on. All right, so we covered everything. Well, Milan, Riley, thank you so much for making the time today and sharing your experiences. As I mentioned, we have tutoring and testing mock exams coming up, but I really appreciate students like you being able to come back and share your own experiences, because that's how others can learn and get better. So thank you so much for being willing to share kind of your best practices and approach to the exam.
Of
All right,
course. Thank you,
everyone.
William.
Thank you and good luck, guys.
Thanks, guys. Well, have a great night and best of luck.